Welcome back to Fighting Assumptions, where we take the idioms, paradoxes, and common sense ideas that society accepts without question and put them under the microscope. Today we talk about why your vote isn't as democratic as you think, and what the Greeks used instead. We have been conditioned to believe that the ballot box is the ultimate symbol of freedom. We are taught that the right to vote is the finish line of democratic progress. But if you could transport an ancient Athenian, the very people who invented demokratia, to a modern polling station, they wouldn't congratulate us on our freedom. They would likely tell us we are living under an elective oligarchy. To the Greeks, the root of democracy wasn't the vote. It was the lottery. We assume that elections are democratic because everyone gets a vote. However, the Greeks saw it differently. They argued that elections are inherently aristocratic. Think about it. In any election, who wins? Is it the average person? It is usually the person with the most money, the best name recognition, the most polished public speaking skills, and the backing of powerful interests. Elections filter for the elite. The Athenians recognized that if you only use elections, the government will always be composed of the wealthy and the well-connected. To battle this, they turned to sortition, the random selection of political leaders. To ensure the system couldn't be rigged, the Greeks used a specialized tool called a kleroterion. It was a massive stone slab with slots. Citizens would slide their identification pins into the slots, and a tube would drop colored balls to randomly determine who would serve in the government that day. By using a lottery, they achieved true representation where the council looked exactly like the population, including farmers, blacksmiths, and merchants. They ensured immunity to bribery, because you cannot bribe a candidate who hasn't been chosen yet. And they ended the politician class. In Athens, you didn't run for office. You were called to serve. This eliminated the ego-driven pursuit of power that seems to be influencing our current landscape. If the lottery was the heart of democracy, why do we vote today? The shift happened during the 18th century revolutions. The founding fathers of the United States were explicitly terrified of mob rule. They chose elections specifically because they wanted a filter. James Madison argued in the Federalist Papers that the goal was to refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through a chosen body of citizens. They didn't want a democracy. They wanted a republic, a system where the many choose the elite few to rule. Over time, we simply started calling this democracy, and the lottery was relegated to the jury box. Political systems are not static monuments to be worshipped, but functional tools designed to solve the specific anxieties of their era. The Athenians built a lottery-based system to survive a world of small, face-to-face city-states where the primary threat was the rise of a single tyrant. Centuries later, the American founding fathers engineered a representative republic out of a deep-seated fear of mob rule and the logistical impossibility of managing a vast, expanding frontier. Today, we treat these 18th century compromises as if they are the final, perfect evolution of governance, yet we live in a hyper-connected digital age that neither of these groups could have imagined. If democracy is a living technology, we must acknowledge that it isn't a fixed terminal point, but a process that requires constant reinvention. By abandoning the lottery, we fundamentally broke the definition of the word democracy. Once the 18th century revolutionaries replaced random participation with elite representation, they opened a Pandora's box of semantics. This is why, today, even one-party states can authentically claim the mantle of democracy. From their perspective, a single party acting as a meritocratic vanguard is more democratic than the divisive theater of Western elections. Through the lens of the ancient lottery, these two systems are just two sides of the same coin. Both share the same core assumption, that the average person is not fit to hold power directly. In the West, we assume the people are only fit to choose their masters. In one-party states, they assume the people are only fit to be consulted by them. By defining democracy as representation rather than participation, we've allowed a radical tool for equality to be replaced by a linguistic shell game where the labels matter more than the actual distribution of power. Ultimately, the greatest threat to a functioning democracy is the assumption that we have already achieved its final form. We have been taught to conflate the act of voting with the essence of power, yet we often find ourselves frustrated by a system that feels increasingly unresponsive to the people it claims to serve. To fight this assumption is to recognize that our current political architecture is not a sacred, unchangeable truth, but a historical choice made by men who were just as prone to fear and bias as we are today. Real democratic progress doesn't come from doubling down on 18th century mechanics that no longer fit our reality. It comes from having the courage to strip away the labels and ask what rule by the many actually looks like in the modern world. If we can let go of the rigid definition of democracy we were handed in a classroom, we might finally find the space to build one that works for generations to come. At Fighting Assumptions, we try to stimulate people to think further, to question things, and figure it out with facts. We hope this story inspired you. Learn more by subscribing to our Substack newsletter.